Hi everybody, welcome to another video from Business Brews. Today we're going to look at company legal status, and in particular we're going to look at unincorporated legal forms today. Those are businesses that are attached legally or are legally the same as the owners of the business. That differs markedly from a lot of businesses that you'll see, particularly larger businesses like your big corporations like your McDonald's, your Starbucks, etc., which are incorporated. Because with those, they are separate legal entities from their owners. Whereas today we're going to look at unincorporated legal forms, which are the same as their owners, okay, in terms of legal purpose. So, unincorporated legal status then, that means the business and the business owners are the same legal entity. The owners will therefore have total liability for the business itself. So in a nutshell, the owners and the business are the same. So if the business gets into trouble, the owner will be expected to cover any shortfalls, okay, in terms of money. If the business is in debt, effectively the owner's in debt. The owner risks everything they've got for that business, okay? Whereas incorporated status means that a business becomes a separate legal personality and is therefore detached from its owners. So imagine if both an incorporated business and an unincorporated business were to lose a lawsuit. Imagine they've been sued for a huge amount of money. The incorporated business would effectively mean that the shareholders themselves are not responsible for that loss, okay? Whereas an unincorporated business basically means the business owner will be responsible for the entire payment or whatever. So you can see the difference there. An unincorporated business means the business owner themselves are liable, whereas an incorporated business detaches the shareholders from liability to a certain extent. It's the corporation itself that is liable. Okay? So, the most common type of unincorporated legal status is the sole trader. Now, in the UK, 59% of all businesses are sole traders. Really straightforward. Really easy to set up, by and large, easy to administer, and actually it covers most trades if you think about it. A plumber, they're probably going to be sole traders. An electrician, sole trader. Doesn't make sense for them to be much bigger than that because effectively, unless you get into it becoming a much larger organisation like Pimlico Plumbers or one of the bigger corporations, then effectively as a sole trader, it'd be so much easier just for you to run the business yourself. So this is the simplest way to set up and run a business. Ownership and control of the business rests with a single individual, hence the name. Being a sole trader, though, is a risky business because it's the individual that is responsible and has sole unlimited personal liability for the business, its debts and its obligations, and any claims made against it. So in the simplest form, a business owner could lose everything if the sole trader business were to get into serious debts or be sued or get into some sort of contractual obligation that it cannot necessarily fulfill. So the business owner could lose their house, they could lose all their savings, they could lose their car, they could basically go bankrupt. But the sole trader also owns all the assets of the business and can dispose of them as they wish. They may employ staff and trade under a business name, but ultimately the sole trader means that one person is the owner of the business, the controller of the business, and effectively the person who pays out any liabilities, but also takes the profits, which is, a plus side. So the advantages, first and foremost, I think it's control. If you're a sole trader, you've got complete control over your business. It's easy to start up. There's no need to register accounts at company's house, that sort of thing. With a sole trader, you're basically self-employed. So you just do your self-assessment tax return, you do the other bits and bobs that you need to do legally. But other than that, once you've finished that, you can just run the business, and it's really easy to do. And it's really easy, or relatively easy, to complete the administration for it as well. So compared to a lot of organisations where there's a lot involved, Sole traders are easily administered compared to others. Disadvantages, the biggest disadvantage is that concept of unlimited liability. The fact that you are liable for every debt the business gets. And I can't stress that enough. If the business owes £10,000, really it's you that owes £10,000. If the business gets sued, really it's you that gets sued. If the business goes bankrupt and closes, then all the debts that haven't been written off, etc., means that you're going to have to stump up for them. So that's the unlimited liability element. You've got the difficulty in raising money. If you're a sole trader, you can't issue shares. You can't do the different things that bigger organizations would do to raise money. It'd be hard to get investors. It'd be hard to get people on board because ultimately you're a sole trader. And the last thing is that the business is dependent on the owner. If the owner's ill, then obviously trading is going to be very difficult. And obviously if the owner sadly dies, then the business will probably end as well. Okay, legally, that's the case. So with an incorporated business, the business would carry on. But on an unincorporated business, if the owner dies, then the business tends to die with it, unless something can be done to change the names on the deeds, etc., which we'll go into at another time. But to keep this nice and simple. So a partnership is effectively similar to a sole trader in the sense that it's unlimited liability, but there's more than one person that runs it. Okay, between typically 2 and 20. I think the more you get, the harder it is really, because although you've got more heads, it means it's harder to reach agreement. A partnership can arise without any formal agreement when people carry on a business in common, but typically there is agreement to trade as a partnership. Partners will usually draw up a legally binding partnership agreement setting out the amount of capital contributed by each partner, so how much money they're putting in, and how the profits will be shared, and indeed how the losses will be shared as well. So we're accepting there's going to be unlimited liability. How would that be distributed between the partners? Are they equal partners, 50-50? Is one partner putting 80%? Is another one putting in 20? You know, they're the sort of decisions that would be included in the partnership agreement. It's really important that you have that partnership agreement, because without that, that's where you get into trouble. And you may have seen TV shows like Judge Rinder, Judge Judy in the States, where this turns nasty because you've got a partnership and things have either gone sour or things have gone really well. And when it's come to distributing the profits or distributing the losses, then people can dispute what they have and haven't contributed and what they are and aren't liable for. So the key differences then, there are a few advantages. First and foremost, the big advantage of a partnership is you've got different skill sets which might complement each other. So with a sole trader, effectively you've got to do a bit of everything. You've got to do a bit of marketing. You've got to either hire an accountant or do the accounts yourself. You've got to do every little bit of the business. If you've got partners, then some might be good at certain things. Someone might be really good at the paperwork side of things. The other one might be really good at the ideas and the brainstorming and the direction of the company, the public relations, all these different things. So the different skill sets might complement each other. You share the costs. That's obviously a massive advantage. You know, if it's a big business that costs a lot of money to set up, then you can share those costs and you can bounce ideas off each other. The old saying, two heads are better than one, is absolutely true when you're discussing ideas to do with a company. Disadvantages are, obviously a really big one is conflict, the idea that people will disagree. And part of that really is you've got to share profit and control. So what if you've got different ideas about the strategy for the organization? Imagine one of the partners wants to expand the business, whereas the other one wants to just take their profit out of the business and not reinvest it. Ultimately, you're in a conflict there, aren't you? So that's the big difference from a sole trader. With a sole trader, you've just got one person makes those decisions. But with a partnership, effectively, you've got to reach some sort of consensus or agreement. And that's not always easy, particularly in business. The last one then that's probably worth just touching on very briefly is a trust. A trust effectively isn't there to make a profit, but it's an asset holding structure on behalf of a person or an organisation. So, you may have heard of the super rich, they tend to have a trust fund, all those sorts of things. A similar sort of thing, really. A trust is run by a small group of people called trustees who are legally responsible for the administration of the trust and personally liable for any debts or claims against it that cannot be met by the trust's own resources. Trusts make their own set of rules enshrined in a trust deed, which sets out the trust's objectives and may be used to ensure that assets and profits are used for a particular purpose. They don't raise finance, they simply manage assets and do not distribute profits. So this is a very different concept to the sole trader and the partnership, in the sense that it's there to hold assets, not necessarily make money or profit. But it's still interesting to know that the trust is another legal structure for an unincorporated organisation. So they're unincorporated legal structures. I'm going to put another video on soon about incorporated legal structures. Please continue to follow this channel. Please like, please subscribe, please ring the bell. And remember, with Business Brews, our sessions are taught in the time it takes you to drink a simple cup of tea or coffee. So sit back, relax, get a drink, and learn something. Thank you very much.